everybody, welcome to Wild Boy Movies, the place to talk movies. And just yesterday, as of me recording and uploading this video, we had the Oscars go down, which is a big event for a lot of us movie fans to celebrate the best of the best movies of last year. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is giving you guys my thoughts on the 2026 Oscars and really dive in deep to the big wins for horror and K-pop demon hunters. But be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below your thoughts on the 2026 Oscar winners. But without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so before even getting into the Oscar winners, I want to go ahead and talk about some of the funny parts of the Oscars, because yes, Conan O'Brien did return to host the Oscars this year, and I think a lot of people really praised him for his humor at the Oscars last year, and he definitely brought the humor into the Oscars this year. I mean, the worst joke for me at the Oscars was like this part where Conan O'Brien was just listening off brain rot, but some of the other moments that Conan O'Brien joked about was pretty funny. I mean, we had a whole bunch of Michael B. Jordans filling in the empty seats at the Oscars, and this post from Discussing Films was just absolutely funny. It was just a whole bunch of Michael B. Jordans. We also got Grogu at the Oscars, and that makes sense because Pedro Pascal was there. We also got a new Leonardo DiCaprio meme, but some of the big ones I want to talk about is the reunion of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. Like, this is really big since we haven't seen these two on screen together since Avengers Endgame in 2019, and it's great to see them together here, and this is kind of like an appetizer before we see them back together again in Avengers Doomsday, because remember, Robert Downey Jr. is playing Doctor Doom, and we already have confirmed that Chris Evans is going to be back as Steve Rogers. I also want to detail how Robert Downey Jr.'s suit at the Oscars is a dark green color, which is basically the colors of Doctor Doom, even though it's a more brighter green. But the best part of the Oscars, besides the Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans reunion, was Conan O'Brien dressing up as Aunt Gladys from Zach Cregger's Weapons. Like, that was just insane and crazy to see, but I thought it was pretty good. He looked uncannily similar to how Aunt Gladys looked in the movie, and he even got animated into K-pop demon hunters. This was honestly like the best joke of the entire Oscars. Like, it was just so good and was just great to see. But alright, let's now go ahead and talk about the Oscar winners, but the ones that I mainly want to go ahead and talk about. And since we were talking about Conan O'Brien dressing up as Aunt Gladys, I figured I'd go ahead and start off with the first big win of the night, and that was Amy Madigan winning Best Supporting Actress for her role as Aunt Gladys in Zach Cregger's Weapons. This was the first big win of the Oscars in 2026, because horror really does not get that much recognition by the Academy, and it was great to see that they're giving that recognition with Amy Madigan's performance as Aunt Gladys in Weapons. Now, Weapons is a movie that I have not seen yet. It's one that I do want to go ahead and watch, but I think a lot of people enjoyed Amy Madigan's performance as Aunt Gladys, so that was great to see, and it was funny to see all these companies get into that, with Wendy's putting out a fake shirt of the Wendy's logo, but it's Aunt Gladys instead, and then Paramount went ahead and dropped the first poster for Scary Movie 6 with the parody Ghostface dressed as Aunt Gladys, and I love how the mask in this poster is the exact same mask, or close similar mask, to the What's Up mask from the first Scary Movie, and it makes me wonder, is parody Ghostface gonna dress up as Aunt Gladys in Scary Movie 6? Because we are set to get quite a few forms for parody Ghostface in this movie. I mean, we're gonna be getting Dr. Ghostface using the stuff, and we're also hearing that Ghostface is gonna be using a pretty controversial item in that movie. But going back to the Oscars, let's continue on with the horror sweep, with Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein taking home 3 Oscars. And that was for Best Makeup and Hairstyling and Best Costume and Production Design. This is again another huge win for horror movies, and I think a lot of people are going to be pretty satisfied with those Oscars taken home by the Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein movie. And I can't really comment on that because this is, again, a movie that I have not seen. But I think, again, this is a huge win for horror movies in general. But we haven't gone to the biggest win for horror at the Oscars, which we will get to later on. But other Oscars I want to talk about is F1 winning Best Sound Design, and I think that's probably going to be a big win for the F1 community because I know a lot of people enjoyed that F1 movie. I haven't seen it yet, but I do have Apple TV, so I might go ahead and give that a watch pretty soon. There was also a tie for Best Live Action Short, and that's all I'm really going to say about that since I really haven't seen any of those shorts nominated, and it's a category that I'm not going to focus too much time on. When it came down to Best Picture, there were quite a few options on what could end up taking home that award, and I honestly thought it would go to Sinners just because it was a really big movie, but it ended up going to One Battle After Another, which, again, like I stated a couple times in this video, this is a movie that I have not seen and probably won't have that much of an interest to see since the trailers really haven't gotten me interested to even want to go ahead and check out the movie. And this movie had a total of 6 Oscar wins this year. But now going on to the 3 main categories that I definitely want to spend a lot of time on is for 1, Avatar Fire and Ash, winning for Best VFX. And we all could have expected Avatar 3 to end up taking home that Oscar, but I'm very happy that it ended up did because those VFX in Avatar Fire and Ash look amazing. In fact, that is in fact the biggest pro that I can give Avatar Fire and Ash if you see my review for that movie is the VFX for the movie look really good, and that could be said for all 3 of these Avatar movies, which all 3 of the Avatar movies have won the Oscar for Best VFX. And this movie especially deserved that VFX Oscar win because there were a lot of amazing shots in Avatar Fire and Ash, and they definitely deserve that award. I also want to go ahead and focus on Sinners because this is the biggest horror movie for the Oscars this year, coming in with a total of 4 Oscars, winning Best Original Score, Best Original Screenplay, Best Cinematography, and Best Actor, making Sinners a total of 4 Oscar wins this year, and leading the horror genre of the Oscars this year with a total of 11 when you count with Sinners, Weapons, and Frankenstein. And this year was the biggest win that we could have for a horror movie in recent memory because horror movies really don't get that much attention at the Oscars. Now, when I say that, I don't even expect something like Scream or Terrifier to even be nominated at the Oscars, but something like elevated horror movies like Talk to Me, Get Out, or The Babadook, you know, those type of horror movies that would probably be nominated at the Oscars. And it's just great to see the Academy recognize horror movies. I mean, I know this wasn't really a winner, but The Ugly Stepsister was nominated for Best Makeup and Hairstyling. And even though Sinners did not take home the Best Picture award, I still think that this is such a huge win for that movie and horror movies in general. Just because, yeah, like I said, 11 wins for horror movies at the Oscars this year. And Sinners is, again, a movie I have not seen, but I actually did want to go ahead and watch the movie before the Oscars, but haven't gone around to watching it before then. But now I definitely want to go ahead and give that movie a watch. But alright, now going into the one that I definitely want to spend the most time of in this video is the big win of K-pop Demon Hunters at the Oscars. So starting off, I want to talk about how Golden won Best Original Song at the Oscars, and is in fact the first ever K-pop song to win an Oscar, and that was something that I didn't even know of, so that was an interesting fact to know. But this was probably like the only Oscar that I thought K-pop Demon Hunters would end up winning, just because I kind of didn't think that it would end up taking home that Best Animated Feature category, but turns out I was definitely wrong, and K-pop Demon Hunters went ahead and took home Best Animated Feature. And my reaction? This random moment from the movie Hoppers with Tom the Lizard screaming. I honestly can't believe K-pop Demon Hunters went ahead and took home that Best Animated Feature Oscar, just because I honestly didn't think it would end up taking home that Oscar, just because whenever there's an animated movie that I would choose as the one that I would want to win at the Oscars, it never ends up taking home that Best Animated Feature Oscar. I mean, The Mitchells vs. the Machines, Marcel the Shell, and Across the Spider-Verse were all movies that I wanted to win that Oscar, but didn't end up taking home that Oscar. So last year and this year, I decided to go and be realistic on what movies could realistically take home that Oscar, and I realistically thought that Zootopia 2 could end up taking home that Oscar for Best Animated Feature, but the one that I wanted to win ended up winning the Best Animated Feature award. And this was really awesome because K-Pop Demon Hunters is my favorite movie of 2025. And it was a really good movie and a huge phenomenon. And I'm so happy that this movie went ahead and took home that Best Animated Feature award at the Oscars. Like, this makes me even more excited to go ahead and buy that Blu-ray that we're going to be getting thanks to the Criterion Collection. And I think it's the funny coincidence that this award happened days after we got the official confirmation that K-Pop Demon Hunters 2 is happening. And that whole thing with the Best Animated Feature stuff for the past couple of years made me almost not care about the Oscars anymore. But after last year's Anora sweep, I really was like, I'm gonna give the Oscars another chance. And that would be with that Avatar Fire and Ash award for Best VFX, and that movie did end up taking home that Oscar like I mentioned earlier on in the video. And now along with K-Pop Demon Hunters winning the Best Animated Feature award, I really think that we had two really good back-to-back Oscars in terms of wins and awards, at least in my opinion. And I'm going to be keeping a heavy eye out at the 100th Oscars because of Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse. Because I have a feeling that Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to be absolutely peak and just as good as Across and Into the Spider-Verse. And I also have a feeling that Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to get nominated for Best Animated Feature at that 100th Oscars in 2028. And I just have a feeling that if it is a masterpiece like I'm expecting it to be, it could take home that Best Animated Feature award. But still, this is great to see that K-Pop Demon Hunters took home that Oscar award and really started off the week very strong. And it's only going to get better thanks to that Spider-Man Brand New Day trailer that we are finally going to be getting this week. In fact, we're hearing that it's going to be releasing on Wednesday. But that was my thoughts on the 2026 Oscars. I honestly don't know if I'll go ahead and make this video again next year in 2027, but will for sure make an Oscar video for 2028, because again, Beyond the Spider-Verse. But I want to hear from you guys. What are you guys' thoughts on the 2026 Oscars? What jokes did you find funny and what awards were you happy that were given out? Be sure to leave all of that down in the comment section, and while you're at it, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video, and have a great day.